Mecool M8S Pro L, fitting a fan. This is before, this is after, but this is actually one with a 40mm by 11 heatsink added, and that means that the fan won't actually fit inside, or not completely inside, the lid. So what you have to do for this one is you have to drill a 38mm hole. That's that size. That should have a drill bit in the middle, drill bits in there. 38mm hole, and then it fits half inside, half outside. What you have to do is you have to find your knife. You have to cut halfway down from this side. That's the side that the nut or the head of the screw fits in. Halfway down from that side, you cut like that, backwards and forwards, cut it off, and then once you've done that, you cut down right on the edge like that, just right on the edge. In the case of my 38mm hole, your hole might be slightly different and you might have to cut it a bit further in, or if it's the other way it probably won't work. But so it's 38mm hole maximum. That then fits inside and comes up through the hole, and I've fitted a little grill on it. I don't know if you can see that. That's got a nice 30mm fan grill fitted on it. They're quite expensive in black. They're cheaper in chrome, direct from China. This fan is 30mm by 7.8mm, and it costs, well, you can get some of them for less than $1 on eBay. This one was $1.21. Includes some little screws, which I don't use. 4 screws, 4 nuts. Comes like that from China. $1.21 on ebay.com. £1.01 on ebay.co.uk. This is the fan I'm going to fit today. This is a Sunon Maglev. They're a bit more expensive. Can you see? Is that going to focus in on that? Sunon Maglev. There we go. 30mm by 7mm, 6.8 actually. Very thin, very little. And the only trouble with them is they run very fast and quite noisy. So you have to add in a resistor. You have to with those as well, in my opinion, because running at 5 volts, they run a bit too fast and a bit too noisy. So for this one, its resistance is about 66 ohms when you measure it. Multimeter won't measure them, or at least I can't get a multimeter to measure them using the resistance scale. So what you have to do is you have to put 5 volts across it and measure the current going in, and then use your V equals IR or R equals V upon I to get what resistance you need. So this was 66, so to get it down to 3.3 I used a 33 ohm resistor. That's in this one, and that spins it very nicely, nice and smooth, nice and quiet. This one, different resistance, is about 55 ohms, but it spins much faster. So I'm actually using, or going to use, a 60 ohm resistor, and that'll bring it down to a reasonable speed. So it's absolutely silent, and it still blows cold air over the heatsink. I'm also not going to replace that heatsink using that heatsink. I'm going to use the original one, and then this will fit completely inside. In the top, fitting completely inside, you don't use a 38mm hole. You use, well, probably a 28mm hole would be best, but I've only got a 30mm, so I'm going to try that and see if it works. Hopefully it should. I'll cut that off camera using a pillar drill, but you can use any old hand drill with that kind of hole cutter in it, hole saw. Anyway, starting at the beginning, what we have to do is you have to open the little box. Now underneath there's 4 rubber pads, and the best thing to do is get a fingernail under one corner and just lift it very gently and what you want to do is peel off the glue with, yeah, can you see the yellow glue on that? Peel the yellow glue off with the little rubber thing, and then save those on a bit of label backing so that they don't get damaged or dirty or anything. And do that with all 4 of these little things. Pull them off. These are coming off very nicely. Sometimes they try and leave the yellow stuff behind in the hole, and you don't really want that, because it's better to stick them back on with the yellow stuff on them. It's a little sticky film, double-sided film. Yeah, they've all come off nicely, so that's good. Right, 4 little crosshead screws. You can use a little Phillips, although it does try and get away from you a bit, cam out as they call it. A JIS screwdriver fits them best, but you probably, well, they're difficult to get hold of, or at least you have to spend money getting them from Japan, really. But they're very nice when you get them, because they work really smoothly and they don't cam out, which is nice. But if you put a lot of pressure on a little Phillips, then they should work okay. You should be able to get it out. Sometimes you can actually put a little tiny flat blade screwdriver in, one that fits exactly in across the slots, and that can work very well, because it tends not to try and cam out, and you can get a decent purchase on it. Again, press down hard, get the screws out. There we go. 4 little screws. Remove the lid. It just comes off. Now on the Pro L, the aerial, Wi-Fi aerial, is on the lid, so we want to remove that. And they've changed the way they do it on this one. It's got a nice foam sticky pad sticking it to the lid, which is going to be a bit more tricky to get off. Let's see if we can get a Stanley knife underneath it. At one corner. It's more nice. It's nicely mounted. In a way, it's nicer than it used to be, but it does mean it's a bit more awkward to get off. And it seems to be coming now. There we go. That's coming off now. So there we go. That's the Wi-Fi aerial sticking in a different place to where it is on my last one, where it went all the way around there, and you could stick it on the side. This one will have to go back in the lid again. There we can see the standard heatsink, and the little Sunon fan will fit on top of it. It will go about like that, because I'm going to mount it in the middle, just because it looks prettier on the outside, and it does basically the same job. You can mount it directly over your one if you want. It's not going to be much different if you mount it there, but it will look a bit odd in the lid, the hole not quite in the middle. Mind you, when you drill holes in the middle of things, they don't always end up in the middle. So I'm going to go off and drill that in a minute, drill the lid in a minute with the hole. In the meantime, what you need to do is you have to solder a resistor into the red lead, I reckon is probably best. I'm going to keep the black lead and attach that to a shroud, probably that one and that one there. That'll give us the earth, and this one gets attached to the underside of the board on the USB, which is going to be there-ish on the other side. It's the pin nearest the power socket. There is plus 5 volts switched USB on that little resistor there. I don't know whether you can see it. There's a little tiny resistor, and that end of it, again the end nearest the power socket, is plus 5 volts, but it's a bit tiny to solder onto, and you don't really want to lift that resistor off. So I think it's probably easiest to put it on the underside. The only trouble with soldering things on the underside is you have to remove that warranty sticker, which, well, as soon as you're going to be drilling a hole in the lid, you've kind of lost your warranty, haven't you? I'm guessing. So that's what I'm going to do next, is I'm going to solder the resistor into the end of this, and I'm going to drill a hole in the lid. I'll do those off camera and come back to you in a minute. Okay. Okay, preamble to drilling the lid. The lid is 102 point something ish, about 102 millimeters across, side to side, 51.05 millimeters. Scribe a line both ways to the middle, same again that way, same again that way, and you get a little cross in the middle. And it's because you've done it both ways, you should have a little gap, and it's basically in the middle of whatever gap you've got is the actual middle. That's pretty close. The other way of doing it, I don't know, probably on this side you draw a line from each corner to get the middle point, and cross it that way. It's probably not quite as accurate, but it should be good enough. Straight line. Yeah, I don't know how else I'd do it. You can measure it with a steel rule, or a ruler of any kind, and get the middle and mark it and do it that way. Find your center basically, and then drill your hole with a hole saw. If you haven't got a hole saw, then really you're probably going to end up best making a square hole in it, with round corners, in which case you drill four holes, and then cut the sides out to make a round cornered hole. Do that, and that's probably the way I'd do it if I didn't have a circular hole saw to do it with. Anyway, okay, off to cut a hole in it now. I'm back in a mo. Okay, so hole saw, cut out the hole. There's the hole. Tidy it up with the old Stanley knife, craft knife, box cutter, whatever you want to call it. Just tidy it up just around the edge. That's not too bad. Whether you're getting any of this. That's pretty good. Tidy up the back a bit as well. just gently, that's it. That's quite nice. Careful of the camera. Yeah, there we go. So that's a nice little hole cut in there. Tidied up. The little Sunon Maglev is going to fit in there. Looks like it'll fit pretty nicely. Like I say, it would have been nice to have a 36mm hole rather than a, I mean, is that what I'm saying? God, what am I saying? 30mm. It would have been nice to have a 28mm hole just to make it a little bit smaller. What I'll do is I'll mount that on the back with some of the double-sided tape so that it holds it nicely in place. Okay, I'll just pause and do that because it'll take a little bit of a moment. Okay, 4 bits of sticky, double-sided sticky foam tape, 3M type, in place, ready to go. Put that aside for a minute. Fan, box, and now we got to decide, are we going to solder to that little tiny resistor and save getting underneath? If you go underneath, you've got to remove that screw and the screw underneath that little label there, which breaks up as soon as you try and get it off. Or you can try and attach to that little tiny resistor there. Think I'll have a go. So, soldering iron nice and hot. It's a big soldering iron, this one. You really need a little tiny one. A little tiny pointy one for this sort of thing. So this might not work. Right. Try and get in here. This is the old glasses. Right. Put the solder on there. Put that down in there. Yep. Fingers crossed that looks all right. Let's hope so. The other side is going to go to this here. Because that's a nice little shroud. And we can go onto there. There we go. That's that on there. So that is the fan attached with its resistor. So if we don't do that, swap over, power supply on. That saved undoing the screw and getting underneath. So power supply. Let's just plug it in and see if the fan works, make sure that it works. Yep. Don't know whether you, stuck. Don't know whether you can see that. Little fan spinning away. Little blue light on. Lovely. So we'll unpower it again. Go back to fitting it up together then. So we'll remove these sticky pads. Well, I'll remove the backing off the sticky pads, I should say, shouldn't I? And then We want it to be sort of like that way, front, locate it, try and get it nice and centered, and we'll have that pointy bit to the back. And rerun at the end of the video because I ran out of space and the video decided to glitch a lot. You've probably seen some of the glitches a minute ago, but this is the end of it redone. Stuck on the top, 4 little pads looking nicely aligned. Stick back in the Wi-Fi antenna. That has to go on the front here. That in there. Stick that on. Then get everything nicely in. You have to sort of fold everything in to get it to fit. Now you can see that it's all folding in quite nicely. And then put the lid down. Careful not to trap anything. Don't think anything's trapped. Seems to be fitting okay. Nicely aligned. 4 little screws in the bottom. Put those in. Now it will close down to within a millimetre or 2 of fully closed. You could probably pull it all the way down, but I think I'll leave it at about a millimetre gap because it adds to the airflow, and I don't think it looks bad, to be honest. Just closing it down to that little light isn't as good as it was before. Anyway, get those on. Four little screws. You see, nice little, just a little tiny gap, about the same all the way around. That kind of a little bit proud, so drag that down a little bit. There we go. Okay, that looks nice, like that. Stick the little rubber feet back on, and it's all done. I won't do that now. Finish it off with a little chrome grill or a little black grill, 30mm fan grills, finger guards, whatever you want to call them, and that's it, all done. I've actually, in the meantime of doing the video or finding out that it wasn't done properly, I've tested this now, and running flat out with stress CPU, it only gets up to 60 degrees. And it idles about 35-40, which is very nice. It's about 20-21 degrees here at the moment, centigrade, all that. There you go, nice little fan fitted inside the box. Thank you very much.